my God, you are a virgin.
Laughter echoed through the marble halls of the Sterling mansion, not the soft, warm kind, but the sharp, mocking kind that carried secrets and disrespect. The air was rich with cologne, cigar smoke, and the scent of luxury. In the centre of it all sat Alexander Sterling, a man as cold as the diamonds he wore in his wristwatch. Alexander wasn't just a billionaire, he was the face of pride. He walked like the world owed him and talked like women were just tools to decorate his success. To him, all women were the same, cheap, dramatic, and always after something. Around him, 3 of his closest friends lounged on velvet couches. Joel, the gym-built flirt who always had 2 girls on speed dial. Kenny, the loud one who spoke as if he owned the room. And Roland, the quiet but cruel observer, always judging. They were men of money, men of power, but empty when it came to respect. Alexander sipped his wine and chuckled darkly. "Tell me why I should ever get married," he said, tilting his head. "Every girl I meet ends up the same, loud, greedy, and spread open like a public gate." Joel burst out laughing. "The last one I had," he said, shaking his head. "Bro, I swear I almost fell in. I asked if she had a past and she said, 'Only 5 guys.' I told her, 'Maybe 5 at a time.'" The others roared. It was how they bonded, not with respect, but with stories of conquests and insults. Kenny leaned back and added, "I've never met a real one, a real woman. Virgin? Please, that's like a unicorn in this city. If she says she's pure, she's lying, or she's boring." Alexander nodded slowly. "Exactly. They wear innocence like makeup, but underneath, they're all the same, just looking for what they can take." The men laughed again, drowning in their own lies, high off their own ego. Outside the lounge, quietly wiping the edge of the staircase with a cloth, was a girl none of them noticed. Elena. She had been working at the mansion for 2 weeks. An orphan, soft-spoken and invisible by choice, she moved like silence. She had heard the way they talked, every word, every name they dropped, every cruel laugh. But she said nothing. She cleaned, nodded when spoken to, and disappeared into the corners of the house like a shadow. To them, she was just the new maid. Another face, another servant. But Elena had something they'd never seen in any of the women they mocked. Something sacred, something rare. Not just physical purity, but depth, dignity, and values they wouldn't recognize even if it stood right in front of them. That night, as the men kept drinking and laughing, Elena wiped her hands and headed quietly back to the small servant room behind the kitchen. Her heart was calm, but her mind was loud. She had seen men like Alexander before, powerful on the outside, empty on the inside. They didn't know it yet, but their world was about to change. The city skyline twinkled like diamonds, spilled across a velvet cloth. But inside Alexander Sterling's private penthouse, 20 floors above the noise of traffic, another kind of world existed. Loud music played in the background, low enough not to disturb their conversations, but enough to remind them of the club they had just left behind. Alexander poured another glass of whiskey, his shirt half-buttoned, a smirk playing on his lips. "So, Roland," he said, swirling the drink, "you were quiet tonight." "Don't tell me you're catching feelings," Roland snorted. "Feelings? For what? For the girl with fake lashes and a voice like she's chewing ice cubes? I left her in my bed, naked, and I didn't even bother to say goodbye." Joel burst out laughing. "That's more like it. You scared me for a second, bro. I thought maybe you were turning soft." Kenny raised his glass. "To freedom. No love, no stress, just bodies and fun." They clinked glasses. This was their language: casual cruelty, cheap sex, and money spent without a thought. None of them had a girlfriend. None had ever wanted one. They called women distractions, liabilities, gold diggers. To them, every woman had a price, and it usually came in designer heels and fake tears. Alexander leaned forward. "Tell me something, honestly," he said, more serious now. "Have you guys ever met a woman who didn't act like she was pure, then turned out worse than the ones who never pretended?" Joel shook his head instantly. "Bro, never. They all do it. I'm not like other girls. But give her a bottle of wine and 2 hours and she's the same." Roland grinned.
You want to hear crazy? Last month I met one who said she was a virgin, dead serious. I even respected her for it. Guess what?
They all looked at him.
She ended up sending me pictures, and by the end of the week, gone, wide as a tunnel.
The room exploded with laughter. Alexander sat back laughing, but it didn't reach his eyes. He wasn't angry, but somewhere deep down he was tired. Tired of the routine, tired of pretending these flings meant something, but he'd never admit that out loud. "Women," he said almost to himself.
I've built empires, broken records, ruled industries, but the one thing I'll never take seriously.
Joel and Kenny answered together.
A woman.
They all laughed. Just then the door buzzed. "Expecting someone?" Kenny asked. Alexander smirked. "Just the twins from last weekend." A few minutes later, 2 women walked in, both dressed to steal attention, laughing like they already owned the room. The rest of the night was a blur. Drinks poured, clothes dropped, music got louder. And somewhere between the bodies and fake moans, Elina walked quietly past the penthouse hallway, heading to her tiny room, unnoticed. She heard the sounds, not for the first time, but said nothing. She kept walking, her steps slow, steady, unbothered. Because she knew something they didn't. They were loud, but they were lost. And one day, the truth would knock the pride out of all of them. The morning sun didn't shine into Alexander Sterling's bedroom. The blackout curtains were drawn tight, blocking out anything that resembled real life. The only light came from the flickering screen of the TV left on overnight, now playing some boring finance news. Alexander groaned and sat up slowly, brushing aside a silk bedsheet and a girl's arm still draped across his waist. He didn't even remember her name. Something like Vanessa or Valentina. It didn't matter. She was just another night of blurred faces and empty moans. He reached for his phone. Dozens of messages, business alerts, missed calls from people wanting things. But one caught his eye. A text from Joel.
Bro, I swear, that girl last night was like a cave. I put it in and it just, wah! No grip, no tight, nothing. I thought I was having sex with air.
Alexander chuckled and replied,
You too? This one here? I didn't even last 5 minutes. It was like throwing a pen in an empty bucket.
Minutes later, the group chat lit up. Kenny.
Lamau, these girls need to get stitched or something. No walls, just vibes.
Roland.
You'll think they're born that way, or they just let half the city ruin them before they meet us.
Joel.
Both. They lie about being clean, then act shocked when we treat them like tissue paper.
The chat filled with laughing emojis, crude jokes, and memes, a digital locker room filled with egos, lust, and ignorance. Meanwhile, in the mansion's private lounge, they met up for brunch later that day. It had become their ritual, party at night, talk nonsense in the morning. Alexander lit a cigar and leaned back in his seat, his shirt open, gold chain shining on his chest. So, boys, tell me, out of all these women we've dealt with, not one left an impression? Joel wiped his mouth. Impression? Yeah, like, how did she even feel that? I swear one of them had a body count high enough to qualify as a road. They all burst into laughter. Kenny leaned forward. You know what's funny? These same girls come online and post motivational quotes. Respect me. I'm a queen. Don't judge me by my past. Girl, your past is public property, Roland added. It's all fake purity now, everyone pretending to be something. But when the lights go out, they all spread the same way. Alexander nodded slowly. swirling his wine. "I used to wonder if maybe I was the problem. Maybe I'm just cold or I'm broken. But the truth is, I just see things clearly. There's nothing left to respect." Silence fell for a second, not because they disagreed, but because deep down, none of them had ever experienced something different. They had slept with dozens of women, spent thousands of dollars on dates, gifts, getaways. But at the end of every night, they ended up with the same emptiness. Joel stood up and poured more wine. "Bro, let me be honest. If I ever find a woman who's untouched, respectful, quiet, graceful, I might actually fall. But guess what? That woman doesn't exist anymore." Kenny laughed. "A virgin in this generation, that's like looking for rain in the desert. If she's not lying, she's probably weird or ugly, no offense." Alexander didn't laugh this time. He just stared into his glass. Because even though he agreed, even though he lived this life every day, a tiny part of him, buried deep in silence, wondered, what if there was more? But that thought didn't last long. Roland cracked another joke about the girl he left in his bed this morning, and the room roared with laughter again. No one knew that just outside the lounge, sweeping the hallway in silence, was a girl who heard every word. And no one imagined that she would be the one to shatter everything they thought they knew. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon. The sun sat high in the sky, and the Sterling mansion looked calm on the outside, but inside, the mood was different. It was the weekend, which meant one thing: time for the boys to link up. Alexander sat by the pool, shirtless, a gold chain resting on his chest, sunglasses over his eyes. His phone buzzed. Joel: "Pulling up now. Hope there's food. I'm starving." Kenny: "Make sure that AC is cold, a beg, and I want cold wine, oh." Alexander smiled lazily and sent a short reply. "Everything's ready. Just walk in." 30 minutes later, Joel, Kenny, and Roland stepped into the mansion, all wearing expensive clothes, smelling of fresh cologne, and talking loud like they owned the place. "Ah, this mansion still be heaven," Kenny said, dropping into the soft white couch in the living room. "Now your papa get house?" Joel teased, laughing as he opened a bottle of wine. Alexander walked in, giving them a short nod. "You boys no day change," Roland chuckled. "No need to change when life's sweet like this." They started catching up, talking about women, money, and their latest club adventures. But soon, their voices dropped when the maid came into the room carrying a tray. It was Elina. She wore a simple, clean uniform. Her hair was packed neatly. Her face was fresh, no makeup, no loud perfume. She moved calmly, placing a tray of drinks on the table with quiet grace, then turned and walked out without saying a word. The moment she left the room, Joel raised his brows. "Guy," he whispered with a smirk. "Now who be that maid? That girl get yancho." Kenny laughed under his breath. "Omo, I been dey look am since. She slim, but that back, it dey call attention quietly." Roland joined in, grinning. "Her kind no day shout, but you go no say something day under that uniform." Alexander didn't say anything. He leaned back in his chair, sipping his drink slowly. Joel continued, "But wait-o, you never try am before?" Alexander frowned slightly. "Try who?" "The maid now. She fine small, and body be like something we never see rough play before." Alexander rolled his eyes. "You think I have time for housemaids?" They laughed again. "Forget that thing," Kenny said. "Clean girl like that? If you check 'em well, she go day form innocent. But dem day surprise person pass." Joel nodded. "That kind quiet girl. If you jam her for bedroom, if it shock you, you go just put am and everything go wide open. Wah!" They all burst into loud laughter. Roland leaned closer. "But if na me, I go test am small. Just press her small. See whether she day real or she day pretend. All of them be actress." Alexander smirked but didn't say much. Deep down, he didn't care about Elina. She was just another body in the mansion to him. Just another girl who probably wasn't as clean as she looked. As they kept drinking and joking, Elina walked past the living room again, this time carrying a folded towel. She didn't look their way. She didn't need to. She already knew the kind of men they were, but what they didn't know was this. Everything they laughed about, every lie they believed was about to crumble. Because not every woman is what they assume. Not every girl is lost, not every body is empty. And sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one who carries the loudest truth. The house grew quieter as the sun faded. Alexander's friends had left hours ago, the sound of their laughter still echoing faintly in the halls. The evening breeze slipped through the open balcony doors, carrying with it the scent of rain on the horizon. But Alexander wasn't enjoying the peace. He sat alone in his study, swirling a glass of dark wine, his thoughts heavier than usual. His friend's words echoed in his mind. "You never tried her before? She finds small, that kind day surprise person." He scoffed at first. A housemaid? That wasn't his style. He had models, actresses, influencers, women who begged to be near him, women who knew the rules. Come, please, leave. But something about Eleanor's silence annoyed him. Not attracted him, annoyed him. She didn't smile at him. She didn't giggle like the others. She didn't even act scared. She was calm, quiet, unbothered, too quiet. Alexander hated not understanding people. It made him feel out of control. So he did what he always did when he couldn't control something. He planned to conquer it. That night, as the staff began shutting down the house for bedtime, Eleanor was finishing her duties. She folded the last towel in the laundry room, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. She was tired, ready to sleep. She hadn't eaten much all day. She only wanted rest. As she stepped out of the hallway to return to her small room, she heard her name. "Eleanor!" Alexander's voice called from behind. She paused, startled. "Sir?" "Come here. I need you for something." She hesitated. His voice was different tonight. Heavy. Sharp. She followed him into the guest wing, a part of the mansion usually reserved for visitors. He opened a room door and stepped inside. She waited outside. "Come in," he said again. Eleanor entered slowly. The room was dimly lit, quiet. The door shut behind her. "I need you to fix the bed," he said, though the bed looked untouched. Still, she walked over and began adjusting the pillows, trying to stay calm. She could feel his eyes on her, heavy like a storm. Something didn't feel right. She turned to leave, but he stepped in her way. "Why do you walk around this house like you're different?" he asked, his tone low. Eleanor froze. "I don't understand, sir. You think I don't see you? Always quiet, always watching, like you're above everyone. Do you think you're better than the women I bring here?" "No, sir," she whispered. He moved closer. "So prove it." Her heart skipped. "Sir, please, I don't—" "Stop pretending," he snapped. "I know your type. All of you act innocent, but deep down you want the same thing. Don't waste my time." Tears welled up in Elena's eyes. "Please don't do this." But Alexander didn't listen. He was lost in his own anger, his own pride. He grabbed her arm roughly. She struggled. "Let me go, sir." "Eleanor, I said stop acting," he growled. She tried to break free, but he overpowered her. She cried, screamed, begged, and then he froze. Because what he felt was resistance. Something was different. Her cries were not dramatic, not exaggerated. They were real, sharp, honest, terrified. And then the truth hit him like a wave. She was untouched. Everything in him stopped. He backed away suddenly, breathing heavily, staring at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Eleanor had collapsed on the floor, shaking, crying silently. Her face was red, but her dignity still burned in her eyes. Even in pain, she didn't curse him. She didn't shout. She just looked at him, broken but unbowed. Alexander staggered back a step, hand over his mouth, shocked. What had he done? The one thing he thought didn't exist, the one thing he and his friends joked about, mocked, laughed at. He had just tried to destroy it. And in that moment, the walls of pride he'd built for years began to crack.